I wanted to talk a little bit today about how to eat out on a paleo diet. This is one of those issues that I think we tend to overthink and overcomplicate. It's actually very simple, and I would say there are very few restaurants that I've been to, even when I didn't have any say in where we were going, that I couldn't get a decent meal. So what we're looking for eating out on paleo, just like eating at home, is we want to focus our meal around protein, non-starchy vegetables, some healthy fat, and maybe some starchy vegetables. So what might that look like? That might look like some chicken, whether that's chicken thighs or chicken breasts. That might look like a steak. That might look like some seafood. Now, one of the key issues that you're going to run into are things like breading, sauces that might contain gluten if you're, very strictly avoiding gluten. So this is where we have to get comfortable asking questions and doing a little bit of research ahead of time if possible. If it's more of a chain restaurant, you can go on their website ahead of time and assess whether they've got kind of an allergen-friendly menu and what the ingredients are. That said, there are lots of places that I go. I very rarely do that. So I just ask questions, and I don't have celiac disease, so I don't have to be quite as diligent as someone who does have that. That's a life or death issue, but I do have a very severe gluten intolerance. So it does matter to me to avoid gluten. I don't feel good for a couple of days if I have an exposure, or knowing when I've known I've had one, I will not feel good. So this is where we're going to ask questions, not necessarily just of the wait staff, but, really trying to delve a little deeper and make sure that they're willing to go back and ask the kitchen staff. Now, again, if you don't have a severe gluten issue, then being, super stringent about what might be in the sauce may not loom as large for you. That said, you want to avoid the breading. That's going to cause inflammation and, GI issues potentially. So we're going to look for as kind of naked a protein as we possibly can. We're going to look for a salad and then ask for maybe an olive oil and vinegar on the side rather than a canola oil or soybean oil filled dressing on top. Or in lieu of a salad, some non-starchy vegetables. That could be a side of steamed broccoli and carrots and cauliflower, kind of that medley. So many times we are able to substitute a side with either vegetables like that or fruit. And again, it is just, the onus is on us to ask some questions. Can I substitute this? And I try to make it fairly lighthearted with wait staff and tell them, yes, I'm asking some questions, but I promise I'm a good tipper. So, I'm not trying to put a big burden on them. So keeping that in mind, I think, is important. I think we can, potentially be annoying. So just keeping that in mind. So we've got our protein, we've got our non-starchy vegetables. If you are eating more carbs, this is where you might opt for a baked potato or a sweet potato, something like that. I'm personally going to avoid things like French fries because they are fried in industrial seed oils. And again, I don't feel good. There are some people that can have that every once in a while and not have a lot of fallout from that. I don't happen to be one of them, unfortunately. So right there, you've got a pretty darn good meal. Some other examples of things that I would get are a ceviche. That there's a local place here that I absolutely love, their shrimp ceviche. So, that's in a tomato base, and at the place I go to, it's a Latin place. It comes with fried plantain chips. Now, again, are those fried in good oils? Probably not, but I don't eat very many of them. I have a couple that, gives me that flavor, and the bowl of ceviche is huge, so it's very filling. So again, making sure that you are filling your plate with plenty of food is key. The thing that's detrimental to our spirit is to go out with friends and they're ordering pizza or nachos or whatever, and we're sitting there with a dry salad and a dry chicken breast. That not only is that not satisfying, but that is going to make us so much more likely that we are going to land face first in a pizza or a cheesecake later, right? So we really have to be mindful about that piece of it. We are emotional eaters as humans. Food should be a very satisfying part of life. So that's what I would say. Now, if you are striving to lose body fat, this is where you're going to want to make some choices. As an example, say you're going to a place that has an amazing gluten-free dessert, and it's something that you could eat without fallout, but is not necessarily fat loss friendly. Well, let's say you've kind of budgeted that into your day, but maybe you're going to choose between having that dessert or having wine or a drink. Again, this is not a judgment thing, but these are some of the things that I will consider based on my activity levels or my goals or what I've eaten that day. So this is where, one of the things that I talk about so often is being strategic about our week. And if we know that we have a dinner out or a meal out planned, without being dogmatic or overly restrictive elsewhere, we can kind of work that in. Maybe we'll go a little lower carb earlier during the day or, whatever that might look like for you. So those are some of the things that you can tweak and adjust. I think so many times we are used to just flying by the seat of our pants, and that's a skill to be learned, but we want to make sure that we are not winging it as a way to avoid doing what we told ourselves we would do. I think I see that sometimes with my clients. I just, had no idea, and I got there and they brought the basket of chips or the basket of bread, and what could I do? And, it's just remembering that no one is putting food in our mouth ever. And I don't want that to come across as, again, that shouldn't feel restrictive. That should feel empowered. We have the ultimate choice as to what we eat. What we eat has absolutely nothing to do with what other people are eating, unless we make it that way. Unless, people aren't looking at what we're eating as much as we think they are. And my go-to mantra for that is, if people are ribbing you or whatever, is eyes on your own plate. I'm eating what works for me. So do you over there, I'm doing mine. We don't have to launch into a lecture or a lengthy explanation of what we're doing. That comes across as defensive and preachy, and nobody wants that. So just do your thing, but kind of have a plan, at least in your mind. Even if you don't know what's on the menu, just kind of have in your mind, this place has this great dessert, so I'm not going to have the wine, or I am going to have a glass of wine, so I don't even need the dessert menu. These are just some of the things that you may want to be thinking about. And again, if you have the opportunity to go somewhere that has a great steak or has, chicken that's cooked really well without being breaded, gosh, go there. But many times we end up at places that, we hadn't necessarily planned or that other people chose for us. So stay in your power. Don't get out of that integrity with ourselves. And again, if you do end up eating something or eating more than you had originally planned, gosh, it's one meal. And, move on. Make your next eating opportunity, optimize that. Do your best there. And, don't overanalyze it, except to the extent, just maybe think, get curious. What could I have maybe done differently to come out of that meal not feeling bloated, not feeling overly stuffed, and feeling proud of my choices? That's what leads to the momentum of more good decisions. When we're like, oh, yeah, I kind of nailed that. And again, we're not striving for perfection. That's never the goal. So please don't devolve into that. I see so much orthorexia, food perfectionism in the health space, and really prevalent in the paleo space. And I'm definitely one who experienced it. And that's not a good place to live. Again, why are we on this journey? To live our best lives. We deserve to feel amazing so we can fully show up in our life. We're not doing it so that we can be a good dieter. That's not the goal. So keep a good perspective. stay in the moment, make your best choice that you're going to feel really good about. That's a really good metric for judging. Looking at that menu, you kind of get excited and just pause for 1 second and think to yourself, is this a choice I'm going to feel good about in an hour? That's going to tell you all you need to know right there. So again, it's not that complicated. It really isn't. And I think that we get a lot of food fear. People isolate, they stay home when they're eating a paleo diet. Social connection is the key predictor of health outcomes. The research is clear about that. Please do not isolate yourself so that you can eat, grass-fed beef that has been blessed by the angels at home every night of the week. You're going to be okay. The last thing that I will mention is that when I am eating meat out, and I don't know of many places that have pastured, organic, grass-fed meat sources, especially locally. I know big cities have more of those options. But here, when I'm eating meat out at a restaurant, I am going to get the leanest cuts possible because an animal is going to store their toxic load, a lot of it, in the fat. So I'm going to avoid that as much as possible and get, that's where I will have, maybe a chicken breast with a lot of other food on the side. Whereas I maybe normally wouldn't have that at home when I'm eating pastured organic chicken. So just some considerations. I would love to hear your feedback, your questions. If you feel like there's something here that I haven't covered, I definitely want to be here to help. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great evening.